Welcome to another episode of the Greatness Engineering Show. It is always a pleasure to have you with us. And I'm your host, Mireille Tulekima, but you know me as the Greatness Engineer. And today we're going to the US. We're going to go to the US and we will have an amazing conversation today about, a newly released book, children book. And my guest today is Dr. Dewhanne. And she will, get the opportunity to let us know, to give us a little bit about her background and how she came about, releasing and, this book and what this book is all about. So let us know where you're watching from. If you're watching live, it is always a pleasure to have, your insight. And if you have any question, just let us know as well, because this conversation is really going to be interesting for all. It's actually coming at a great time where we're focusing a lot on education, and especially, the interaction between, the children, the parents, and the educators. So the book that we will focus on today is called The Oddities of Oy, which is, it's a book that introduced us to a unique river otter who actually embodies creativity, resilience, and the beauty of neurodiversity. So we will have an insight from Dr. Dewhanne on that. And she is actually a certified climate and cultural expert. And she's also the founder of, she wrote another book as well called The Tallest Poppy, Unlimited Untapped Potential. And this is like a powerful work exploring leadership practices among African American women. And she's also the founder of the Tall Poppy Academy, and she will also let us know what this organization is all about. So let us know, like I said, where you're watching from. Don't hesitate to participate, and it will be, as usual, an amazing conversation for you to build on to go to the next level of your greatness. So let's bring Dr. Dewhanne now with us. To another episode of the Greatness Engineering Hour show, the show that is brought to you by the Mireille Tulekima Global Leadership Organization.
Feel is important is if you just look at the word compassion, when it's behavior, it's something that can be learned, and it is something that we can embody through habits and through our daily action.
To get this idea that if we interject this wisdom intentionally, I call them needle movers. It's the needle mover that's missing.
Don't deprive the world of your greatness. Please. Don't do that anymore. Dare to excel, dare to be sexy, dare to be you, dare to be the best version of yourself. Impact yourself positively, and from there impact others. And you are not alone.
So welcome, Dr. Dewhanne. Welcome to the Greatness Engineering Show. Always a pleasure to have what I call the greatness engineers, people engineering greatness where they are, for their communities, and creating a path for others to follow. So before we start our conversation, just wanted to ask you, if you want to add to the introduction. So who is Dr. Dewhanne and what do you need to know about you?
Thank you for having me. It's wonderful to be here. I am a blessing, I would say. I am God's blessing, not only to myself, but to my family members. My name is Dr. Dewhanne Picou-Nyivih, of course. Picou is my maiden name. Born and reared in New Orleans, Louisiana. The eldest of 11 siblings, the only one to graduate high school, university, get a master's degree and a terminal degree in my family. We were born into poverty on welfare and food stamps. I'm not sure if you even know what that is. But in the United States, the government back in the day created a whole new currency for the poor, to identify the poor in supermarkets. So they also made food products with just pictures for the labeling for the poor. So I am very well acquainted with being from the wrong side of the tracks. I have two beautiful children, married to an African king for 30 some more years. My husband, actually, he really put his hand on me and he saved my life. I mean, both literally, emotionally, spiritually, God-fearing man, brought me into help me to have my faith and develop my faith. I'm also a teacher, secondary teacher and adult learning teacher. And I focus, especially in my teaching, on teaching and serving the underprivileged pupil personnel in schools, in secondary schools. These are the kids who have opportunities. I call them areas of opportunity because I don't believe in the word problems, but areas of opportunities in learning. And so that is what I do. That is my passion. That is who I am. I often say that I am the spark that ignites the flame of my students' imagination. And that's who I am at my core.
Wow, it's so inspiring, and just the personal resilience, and from what you've just said, and that bring me to ask you, because you said that you were the eldest of your 11 siblings, the only one that actually got educated, those first generation college students. So how did those responsibilities shape the leader that you become right now? And what have been really the defining moment that made you realize that your struggle would become actually your leadership advantage, because that's what it has become at the end of the day?
You're right about that, and that's a really, really good question. An epiphany for me was in fourth grade. And I don't mind telling you, I'm well over 50. And so this just goes to show you that I remember this story. It goes to show you what an imprint that teachers have on their students. But in fourth grade, I was a very good writer. I didn't have the support of home. Education was not a priority in our home. My mother's had a lot of problems, including drugs, and which is the least of her problems. And she just wasn't prepared to mother children. If you can believe it or not, my mother said she liked having babies because she liked the way they smelled.
Oh,
as if
wow.
as if that's a reason to bring a life into this world, So in fourth grade, going to school, sometimes not understanding about personal hygiene, not understanding that you are poor, not understanding that you are disliked for being different, I was a really good writer. So one day this journalist had come to the school, and the teacher assigned me to do an article, a front page article. And I was young, but I knew what that meant. I knew that that was a special kind of situation if you get a front page article on the school newspaper. So I wrote the article. It was a very good article. And I know that because the teacher told me it was. And the photographer announced that he wanted to take a picture with the person who wrote the article. And I was just so excited because not only was I going to have an article on the front page, I was going to have my picture on the page as well. And it just seemed like a really wonderful honor to me. So when it was time to take the photograph, I stepped up. My teacher put her hand on my shoulder and pulled me back and said another little girl was going to take the photo. And I looked at her and I said, but it's my article. And so she excused us both and took me to the back of the room. And she shared with me that I was unkept, unhygienic, and that, I had a body odor, and that I would embarrass her if I had taken the picture. And I did not think, out of all those, negative words that she had told me, all I could think about is that I wrote this article and it was my accomplishment and it's my article. I didn't even think about the negativity that she was imprinting upon me as a child. And that has stuck with me all of these years. And that made up my mind right then and there that I would never, if I ever became a teacher, treat a child like that, because I know the impact that those words can have on a child. And that was a big turning point in my life, as far as my education is concerned. And it didn't stop there. I have many stories about educators utilizing those kind of tactics, and not all bad, some good. I mean, some good educators as well have paved the way for me. But that really stuck to me. And in my journey, I've spoken to many students and many adults who have similar stories like that one.
Yeah, and that's actually a shame to hear that, because treating especially treating such a young person that way, it's actually quite cruel. And so how do you with this experience, how do you make sure it doesn't happen to any child? What are the things that you've done since then that actually went on and change this mindset of some of the educators, and really change the way they educate the children, the way they communicate with the children, because it's also a matter of having the right communication. So what are the things that you've been doing for the educator and the student to have the right mindset for growth?
Well, so you're right on track with that particular question, because you have to have, first and foremost, a growth mindset. You have to have that. And so for me, let's deal with two segments. One, how I treat my students. Number one, I meet my students where they are, in their learning path, in their life path. I meet them where they are. Academically, I do that by differentiated instruction per their learning modality. So I learn their learning modalities. And as we know, that students are either auditory, they're visual, or they're kinesthetic or haptic, same word synonym. So you have to understand that, and you have to teach in all three modalities to support that student. The first day, everybody gets an A. I leave it up to the responsibility to the student to keep that A or not. There's not a grade lower than a C in my class, because we all know that grades are subjective. Exactly. You know that you can give a child something that they're good at to let them feel a sense of accomplishment, and then quote unquote grade them on that. So I don't even have a D or F on my syllabus. I don't believe in that. I just don't. As far as the parent, that school to home connection, I make sure the parents know that we are a partnership, that I'm going to treat your child as if they are my child while they're in the classroom. And also, if the parents are struggling, there is a plethora of resources, although, well, I guess there were a plethora of resources for you to introduce to parents to as well. If the parents are struggling, there's a department in every district office that has those type of resources for those parents. For example, if a child, you notice a child is coming to school hungry, there's the free and reduced lunch program that you can introduce to that family. There are food pantries that you can direct that family to. There are charitable things that you can do and have the teachers donate and have the students win a prize, so you can disguise that kind of situation. So, because other kids can be cruel too. And so those are the kind of things that I have done in my career to help those students. I will, I have so many stories, but the one story as far as academics of teaching is I was teaching 9th grade in Pasadena in California. And during that time, and when you're at a secondary school, you have the option of having a student aide. And a student aide is a student who has completed all their coursework, but they can't graduate due to age or maybe due to time in the year. So my little student aide, she was a 12th grader, and I am teaching 9th grade. And I just saw that she had so much potential. I mean, she would take my notes, and she would walk, manage while wandering around, which is what teachers do. Not, we're not supposed to just sit behind a desk and do that unidirectional thing. And so she was just wonderful, and she would be on time every day. And so one day she missed school. And, I called home, and about the 5th day, I got really, really worried. And so I was just about to make a home visit, and she showed up the next day, and she had a wool cap on her head. And why that was so just disconcerting is because it was 90 degrees outside. And I'm like, a wool cap at 90 degrees. And so, after class was over during my conference period, I decided to have a conversation for her. And you could have knocked me over with a feather when this child took off the wool cap, and it seemed as though someone had scalped her. She had and this is a child who had beautiful long hair to her waist. And it looked as though someone had pulled the hair out of her head physically. And I was just taken aback, and I gasped. And I said, I want to protect her privacy, but let's call her M. I said, M, what happened? And the story she told me about her stepfather and there being molestation in the house. And she had gotten a boyfriend, and the boyfriend had come to pick her up, and the stepfather had caught them together and decided that, he would take her crown and glory, which is her hair, to make her ugly so the boy wouldn't like her anymore because the stepfather wanted her. Well, here in the United States, we are mandated reporters. And she begged me not to tell anyone, but of course I could not do that. And the process that we have is that we report those kind of situations. So I had to go a step further. Not only did I report it that day, I made sure they got her out of that setting that day. And they were able to find a foster care situation with a relative so that she could go on and complete her senior year. And I am proud to say today, M is an attorney. She's a child advocate. She is a wonderful mother of 2, and she is still with the boyfriend who was now her husband that happened to, so many years ago. And so those are the kind of things that we as teachers, we run into, and that we have to understand the resources and support the people population that we are serving. I mean, can you imagine a stepfather cutting her hair off, bald, scalping her because he wanted to have physical relations with basically a teenager, And then the worst part, I think, is that the mother did not believe it. That is the worst part of it. And that had an effect on me too, because I am ferociously protective of my children, especially when they were young, because I had a mother with the same mentality. The man in my life can do no wrong. You know, you're the problem. The child is the problem, not the man. You know, there's a joke that goes around that says that, you know, you get some women talking baby talk to their significant other and cursing out their children at the same time. Those are sometimes the kind of parents that we deal with, and we have to understand and know how to deal with those very delicate situations, while giving the child the resources to persevere. And I don't think a lot of individuals understand that that's what teachers carry too, not just the grading every day of the classes and the other little nuances, the field trip and the fun stuff, but also the stuff that goes on, you know, psychologically, the social emotional learning that we have been teaching and, you know, distributing information with since day one that we meet the student.
And that's the big part, because that's what's making us, you know, whatever we suffer internally and, you know, spiritually and, you know, and all the things that, you know, that affect us. And it is important as as you educate or as you want to help, you know, the student to understand, you know, this background, so you can help, you know, you can better help them to overcome whatever obstacle they have and grow at the same time, because the important part is for them to grow, to continue to grow and not get stuck in whatever, you know, challenge they have right now. So thank you for sharing that. It is really inspiring and emotional at the same time. But we see how important it is to be an educator, and it's not a passive thing. You really have to dig deep, understand how, you know, the children work, and it's an integrated effort, because there's the educator obviously, but also, you know, the family setting. And the parents as well needs to be involved, and the child itself obviously is, you know, the main character here. So we're going to take a break, and we will be back focusing more on your latest book, really understand what this book is all about, and really dig deep into it. So for those just joining us, my guest today is Dr. Dewhanne. She is a certified climate and culture expert with nearly 2 decades experience in education, specializing in culturally responsive pedagogy, social emotional learning, and addressing, you know, disparities and especially discrimination in the education system. So don't go anywhere. We will be back in a few minutes. To another episode of the Greatness Engineering Hour show, the show that is brought to you by the Birai Telekima Global Leadership Organization.
You know, when I left Disney, I met lots of people who are entrepreneurs and just said, look, I'm starting. What advice do you have for us? And I got some great advice. And there was a few things that were key. First of all, and as you saw in the video there, keep it simple. Be simple about what problems you solve.
Well, what are you hoping for? That means that there's a future. That means that there's something that you yet still need to be realized and materialized in your life. And if you have lost hope and you're not hoping for something, that means you're lost. So we need to get you back to the place of being able to hope again.
You know, trust the process. So many times we get stuck and paralyzed from taking the first step and taking action to get out of that transactional to the transformational of our own lives because we're afraid. But trust the process. Take that one little microscopic step. And I tell you that once you do that, that will increase into another step and another step and another step. So that's what I'd like to leave with you today.
My message for today is delay is not denial. It doesn't matter how long it takes you to accomplish what it is that you want to accomplish in life. Do not stop until you get what it is you know God has for you.
We are back with Dr. Dewhanne, and we are gonna, she just released a children book called The Oddities of Oy, and we really want to know more about it. And the first question I have is, what really led you to write this book, and what is the reason behind? What was the breakthrough again for you to say, okay, I need to write this book and this story? This children book?
No. Well, I'm a voracious reader. I love reading literature, children's literature. Well, I'm an English teacher, so that stands to reason. But in the course of my studies of doing my dissertation, I was discovering a lot of neurodiversity kind of situations that needed to be addressed on the elementary level to address understanding. And a neurodivergent person is just a person who processes a little bit differently than others process information. I myself, I process information. I always say my brain works funny. I have a different way of thinking and a different way of learning. If you think one way, I more than likely think the opposite way. For example, if you would see a mother coming to school in her bed slippers and her rollers in her hair with a house coat on, you may think, and I'm not saying you individually, but people may think, oh my God, look at that raggedy person, that person who is unkept. Whereas in my mind, I think, oh my God, she was so in a hurry to get to school to help her child, she didn't even have time to get dressed. So that's a different way of thinking. So my mind tends to think that way. And I noticed that, I know during school, when I was in school, I did not have a lot of support for my way of thinking. And so I was challenged to become an RSP teacher, and that's a resource special teacher for special ed education here. That's what we have in the United States. And a resource teacher is a teacher who can pull out students to do individual learnings and plan individual educational plans for them. And I noticed that a lot of these kids, they were on the spectrum, and some of them just had behavior problems, and they were pushed into this program for that reason. And so in order to explain to the children why you were here, or why I'm your teacher, I had to develop a special language for them. And I don't want to say a special language. It's a language that they could understand the differences and why they were so special. One of my favorite books in literature is the Percy Jackson's books. I don't know if you're familiar with the Percy Jackson's teenage literature, but Percy Jackson finds out he's autistic. He has autism. And to be exact, he's dyslexic, and he doesn't understand, why he's seeing the things the way he sees the thing. And if I'm correct, I think the author of these books had a child who had autism, and this was a way to explain how he was special. So the way to explain how he was special is that he was born of one of the gods. I'm not sure, I forget whether it's the Roman gods or. But he was born of a god, and this is the reason why he's special and why he can see things in a different way. So along that same track, I invented a little character named Oy. He's an otter. And the reason why I chose the otter is because in the animal kingdom, the otter has the most compassionate mothering of their young, of their pups. They have the most compassionate young. If you've ever looked at otters on, a YouTube video, or you've gone to an aquarium, you'll see that they're very gentle, mild creatures. And so I decided to create this little river otter. His name is Oy, and my son's middle name is Oyinide. That's his African name. his Yoruba name. And so that's where the Oy comes from. And the name of the book, the subtitle of the book is Oy Leads the Way, and he lives in a river where otters play. And he has these little quirks, like he stems, he puts pebbles in a line. He has those repetitive nature. So all the characteristics that some of the children with autism have, he has a lot of them. And his mother, Otter, understands, but his father has a hard time. And as we know, male fathers have, some male fathers have a very difficult time with the word special education, with their children being labeled, especially in the African community. My husband is African, and he explained this to me too, because it's like a kind of like a taboo thing. You want your kid to be known as, not having any disabilities. And so I wrote this book in order to explain definitions of autism, and also to have a story where you can see the gifted portion of your child. Because Oy, he does have these behaviors that are odd. That's why Oy's Oddities. But he's also gifted. He can play the saxophone, and he can play it by ear. He can hear one note, and he can develop. And he's composed so many songs. He is super, super, super intelligent. He's in a GATE program, which that's a gifted and talented educational program in the United States. But yet he still has these oddities, and he's still on the spectrum. And so that's basically what the book is about. The book, it's in its first draft now, and it's going to be available in May through an independent publisher, Barnes and Noble, and also on KDP. Lovely, just a lovely story of coming to an understanding of your child. That's meeting your child where they are, with some strategies, in the book as well. I'm in the process of creating a companion workbook piece for students, whereby the teachers it's almost like having a book club. The teachers will be able to read the story, and then they'll have some assignments, some social emotional learning assignments to go along with the story, to deepening of understanding and comprehension of those situations. And then I've been notified by some districts that they want me to create a professional development for social emotional learning in that capacity as well. And so I love children's literature. Reading, expands the imagination. If I had my druthers, I think I would be a librarian, so I could read and read and read because I just love, I love I love reading. I just love it. I love it. It just, it helped me as a child escape my circumstances when I was a child. And so, I'm a voracious reader. And so that's the story of little Oy.
Wow, very insightful and also powerful, because what are your hope for children and parents to take away from this book? Because obviously there's you define the story, but there's what are the specific messages that or the lesson that you're really trying to convey through that book as well? Obviously it's linked to what you're doing, and so just trying to understand for the parents specifically and the children.
Okay, two things I really want to get over to parents. One, again, it goes back to meeting your child where they are. You have to meet them where they are. I mean, I've come across, and I've been a victim of this too, putting my aspirations on my child. And that's a lot of pressure. And I know in the community, I'll never forget when I married my husband, one of the criteria is we had to have our non-negotiables. And one of my husband's non-negotiables is that we have children. And that was a difficult thing for me because, like I said, I'm the oldest of 11. And you know, when you have a big family, the parents, they raise the first two and then those two raise the rest of them. So I felt like I've reared my children already. But that was one of his non-negotiables. He wanted to be a father and he wanted to have a son. And so I remember when my children were very little, because I have a son and a daughter, when they were very little, and his culture, he says, okay, here, let me give you your options. And this is when they were young. I mean, I think my daughter was maybe 3 and my son was 6. And he said, make a wise decision. You can be a lawyer, a doctor, an engineer, or a disappointment. Choose wisely. And I was like, that's a lot of pressure on a child. But needless to say, my daughter chose to go into the medical field, and my son is on track and finishing up his master's, you know. So just meeting your child where they are. In the beginning, my son had some struggles. He is a gifted student, but he gets bored easily. He's bored very easily. And so some teachers will identify that as, you know, some type of deficit, ADHD or something. They're quick to label a child. And so first, meet your child where they are. And the subtext of that is don't be so quick to label your child and medicate. Children are like flowers. They need time to blossom. They need to be nurtured so they can grow. You know, it'll be okay. So the second thing I want to get from, you know, just these books are just the strategies of supporting your child and making sure that parents understand that it's a partnership in the education of your child, no matter what direction they go to, whether it's vocational or if they want to go to university. It's a partnership between the educator, the child, and the parent. And you three are resources for each other. And just to remember that, but overall, meet your child where they are, you know. And sometimes parents, and I have to go back to the United States, have a tendency to live through their children, you know, vicariously through their children, and especially in the sports arena in the United States. I mean, very competitive, even in Pee Wee League. It's just so competitive, and you find that these parents are living through their children, their unfulfilled dreams, and just understanding that the life that you born, you do not own. That's a blessing from God. And how dare you send that blessing back damaged because you want to facilitate some type of desires that were missed in your childhood. So those are the two things, you know, that I like to emphasize. The partnership and meeting the children, or meeting that child where they are, you know.
Yeah, and it is a big problem, especially. I mean, you said you're married to an African. In the African, I mean, I have an African background as well, where you know, they already have set, you know, journey for the children, and if you don't fit that, you know, that particular plan, you become a liability for them, and they start to label you, and it's starting to really have an impact on the child, thinking that they don't, you know, amount to anything. And that's when, you know, you have wasted talent in any way, and also traumatized children. And so it's, I mean, things are changing, but it's still very strong in the African community, where they are, you know, typical job that or profession that they want their children to have, and living their, like you said, living their dream through, you know, the unfulfilling dream through their children, which is, you know, not the way to go. So we're going to have another break, and then we will come back for the last part of the show. For those, you know, who are joining us, the conversation is really inspiring, and we're learning a lot from Dr. Dewhanne. You will have an opportunity to watch the replay, and then also ask the question if you have any question to ask, or if you want to add to the conversation that we're having now. So don't go anywhere. We will be back in a few minutes. everyone. This is Mireille, the Greatness Engineer, with you today. Welcome to the Greatness Minute. Today, I want to introduce to you the DARE method, which is the method that the Greatness Engineering is based on. First, decide that you want to be great. So that's the D in the DARE method. Then you have to put in place, obviously, a plan and act on this plan. That's the A in the DARE method. After you've acted, there is a result. It can be a good result or a bad result. If it's a bad result, you need to identify what went wrong, identify the gap, bring the right resources to rectify everything that went wrong, and then, you know, expand. When you've actually review everything, you have to expand and get, you know, to the next level. Don't stop at the first success. Greatness is a succession of success, and it never stops, because, you know, you're learning, and the greatness engineering process, it's an unlimited process. So make sure you understand that you have to decide to be great. You have to put a plan in place and act on this plan. You have to review this plan, and when you are okay and where you are, you have to expand, because the expansion, it's what brings you to the next level of your greatness. Thank you very much for being with us today. I see you next week. So we are back with Dr. Dewhanne, and we were just talking about our latest children book, which will be released, you said, in May.
Yes.
And yes, so you definitely want to, you know, be able to get a copy of the book, because it's actually, you know, touching every layer of, you know, of the population or the community or wherever you are. So it is definitely a good tool that you want to have as far as, you know, as a parent, as an educator, to make sure that your child grow and have this mindset of growth going forward. So what are the questions I have, you know, as you know, you've been doing this work for now, you know, almost 2 decades. So what are, you know, in terms of challenges, what are the key challenges that still remain right now that you think must be really addressed at this stage? You know, in the education system, or, you know, in the general education, as, you know, for parents, what will be, you know, the thing that you think we should focus on?
I think in the United States, I think the pedagogy is kind of antiquated here in the United States. I mean, teachers have been in, and not all teachers, just some teachers have been in the classroom for so long that they have not kept up with the skills in terms of technology. So I think bridging that digital divide is one area of opportunity. And for sure, because you have kids out here, the kids of today are not the kids of yesterday. Kids of today are so savvy. I don't know a kid who does not have a smartphone. I just don't know, you know, show me a kid who does not have a smartphone. And the smartphone is a very sophisticated piece of technology. So if these children are operating on that level, and that's even in the poor, you know, poor regions of schools, every child has a smartphone. So they're operating this sophisticated, you know, piece of technology. Utilize that in your classroom to help differentiate instruction, you know. And I think that a lot of times, and I'm guilty of this too, I don't understand the resources that are right there at that are right there in my hands. I mean, now I'm a technology geek. I have every type of technology you can, iPhone, I'm a dual platform user, iPad, you know, you name it, I have it. But that's by necessity, because I have children who navigate that sphere, and that's how they navigate their world, through text. And so I have to learn how to text, you know. And so I think that, you know, bridging that digital divide and supporting technology and the teaching of technology to teachers in advanced ways. And I'm not talking about just how to operate the computer or anything like that. I'm talking about learning how to code. I mean, utilizing Python and understanding Python and teaching those kind of skill sets to students, the pupil population that you serve. So that's a very big challenge. Because I don't know, but technology is so, to a lot of individual, technology is scary. It's like, if you go on the computer and you do something wrong, you'll break it. I mean, it's just technology. It's just, it's not anything to be afraid of. It's something that you could utilize as a valued resource. And especially with all of these apps with AI coming out, and especially with the development of new opportunities in the world, you're going to have that skill set. And I think that it is on the onus of teachers to educate themselves or lobby for that kind of professional development so that they can keep up with the changing times that we have coming upon us. I really think that, that sit and get doesn't work anymore. That unidirectional lecture and stuff, that doesn't get. You have to be able to differentiate. You have to almost, and I hate to say it, it has to be a dog and pony show in the classroom to connect with that engagement, to get that engagement back. And I like that because I'm very animated, and I like thinking of different ways to connect with my students and different ways to get the standard that I'm trying to teach to my students. And, one shoe cannot fit all. And just, varying your skill set, making sure that you have a thorough knowledge of all the technology that's available for you in your school, and then utilizing that technology in your teaching, and then also in your assessment as well. And here in the US, assessments are given on the computer now. They're not given, pen to paper. That's like antiquated. And so helping students practice that type of situation in a real life setting in your classroom, and also differentiating the technology that you utilize in the classroom, not just the Chromebooks, the laptops, but maybe using your iPhone. I have a story about that in my classroom. I like to make sure that I engage with all of my students. And there was this one little girl, I was teaching 7th grade social science. One little girl, every day through my lesson, she would just sit there and she would yarn. And I was like, oh my God, it would just throw me off my game because I'm just not used to students being bored in Dr. Nyivih's class. I'm just not used to that. And so I was like, my goodness gracious, how am I going to connect with this child? And so one day I decided to use, at that time, it was the iPhone 8. That was the new thing that had just come out. And I had gotten into the habit of my kids telling me, oh, Mom, whatever the new phone is, you got to go get it. So like a big dummy, I ran down to Apple and got to get the new phone. So I get the new phone, I bring it to classroom, and I utilize my iPhone to do my timer, because the iPhone had the big numbers on it. And I said, let's time this, because I time things in my classroom so that I can manage the time very well on the skill set that I'm teaching. And so when I pulled out the iPhone 8, her eyes got big as saucers. And she said, Dr. Nyivih, you have the iPhone 8? I said, well, yes, I have the iPhone 8. Why? And it just, my heart began to flutter because I'm like, oh my God, this is the first time this child has even spoken to me, made the, attempt to speak to me. And it turns out she was excited about technology. And that was the connection to get her. I said, and it wasn't, it wasn't totally a fib, but I'm like, I'm having problems with this iPhone. I'm just wondering if you could just, and she set up the iPhone, and then I made her the leader of the technology. So she was in charge of the Chromebooks and everything like that. And that's how we made that connection. And she was able to, she was so excited. I didn't see her yarn the rest of the semester. And I was so happy. That little thing just, made a spark in her, and just makes me happy when I can connect, with the kids, because I try my best every day, and it's difficult for a secondary teacher because we have 30 kids in each class and 6 classes, 1 conference period, so that's 180 something kids a day that you're dealing with, that you have to connect with. So you can imagine. But just that spark in her eye when she saw the iPhone, it was just an incredible time to know that you could visually see that, oh, I reached her, I got her, I gotcha, And so, yeah. And then I could turn that experience into a learning experience and also a supportive mechanism for her. And and she in college, I haven't been in contact with her a lot, but yeah, she went into computer science in university at uni. And so it was just, that spark that you have to catch with the kids. Yeah. So that was just those kind of things, those kind of moments make me, feel the best. I know that God has put me on this planet to be a teacher. I know. I get so excited when they learn things. That was also the year that I introduced Google Classroom into the classroom. So we had a paperless classroom, and so everything was digital. And so it just, so they can connect any kind of way. I mean, it was so funny because kids stay up late to do homework. I learned that the hard way. I would keep, when you turn in an assignment on Google Classroom, your phone being. So, I had this habit of putting my phone on my bed, by the side of my bedside on my nightstand. And so, in the middle of the night, 1 o'clock in the morning, I would ding, 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 ding. And then kids would be turning in their assignments, and I would get on it. And then you can chat with the kids, and they're turning in their
dedication.
Yeah, 1 o'clock in the morning. And you come back the next day and you ask the kid, what were you doing at 1 o'clock now? Well, Dr. Nee, I had to get my homework done, you gave this deadline. And so, it's just exciting. So, and it goes back to expanding, your knowledge base and, utilizing your knowledge to support you in the classroom so that you can support the pupil population that you serve. I want to go back to one thing. You, in the last segment, you said the word liability. You remember that? Let me tell you. I'm gonna tell you one last story because I know you're running out of time. But when I was in college, I was not one of those straight go through the university. Like I said, I didn't have the support of my parents, but I had my college sweetheart, who is my husband now, the African man, and he was set engineering, civil engineering, studying. And so I remember, and I hate to say this now, there were two things that I really enjoyed when I was in college as far as entertainment. And there was a story called Days of Our Lives, and there was also Oprah Winfrey Show. So Days of Our Lives would come on at 12, and Oprah would come on at 3. And I would actually schedule my classes around those two shows, which is show you how not serious I was about university at all. And so he's my boyfriend, then my husband, he was like, what are you doing? When I registered, I would just, schedule my classes around this time. I'm like, I can't have a class at 12 and I can't have one at 3 because, and he looked at me, he said, "You sit you down here." So he sat me down and he said, "What do you see yourself in, 5 years from now?" And I'm like, and I had not a clue. He said, "Well, I see myself working as a civil engineer. I see myself purchasing my home. And when I marry my wife, I'm going to treat her like a queen." And I thought, oh my God, this is it. He is about to pop the question. I was so excited. And he said, me and my wife, we're going to work together and, I'm going to be I'm going to take care of my wife and everything like that. And I'm like, heart all aflutter. He said, "And I'm looking at you right now." And I'm thinking, oh my God, this is it. He said, "And you're a liability." I was like, what? He said, "You're doing these foolish things like, you're planning your classes around the Days of Our Life and Oprah." He said, that's a liability. That's a loser mindset. And I'm like, liability? I was insulted. So I went from thinking I was going to get engaged to being told I was a liability. But I have to say that the conversation that him and I had motivated me because, at the time he was finishing up graduate school and I still had no clue about finishing up undergrad school. But needless to say, I surpassed him because not only did I get my undergrad degree, I went on to get my doctorate degree, and he just has a master's degree.
Okay, so you're not a liability anymore.
Talk about motivation, huh? So that when you said the word liability, I was like, African liability. That is what.
So you know where it's coming from now.
Exactly. You're a liability. And I was like, oh my God.
Fantastic. At least it did motivate you to do better and to grow because
absolutely. That's all for the better. Absolutely.
All for the better. And,
I thought you'd get a tickle out of that.
No, it's so funny because you know that's the mindset. That's really the mindset, and I'm actually happy you actually tell a real story that's relate to this mindset. So
It
thank you
is.
for sharing. Definitely a good one for us to elaborate on this liability issue.
Exactly. Exactly.
Exactly. So before we finish, obviously, like you said, unfortunately, I would like to stay because this conversation is just so amazing, and we learn so much. If you could change one thing, in the education system globally, what would it be, and what is really the legacy that you want to leave through your book and the leadership and everything that you're doing right now?
If I could change one thing in the world, I think I would have teachers be treated like celebrities. And not only with the glorification, but also with pay. The pay is so dismal for what we do. There are teachers here in the US who are still paying off their student loans and can't afford to even purchase a home. And that's a
Wow.
crime. That's a real crime. Not giving teachers the adulation that they deserve, because to me, it's teachers and the rest of the world. My husband likes to say it's civil engineers and the rest of the world, but no, it's teachers. Teachers are the foundation. We're the foundation, and so just to give us put some respect on our craft, put some respect on our names, and show that respect by raising the pay scales across the board. I mean, how do you justify paying a basketball player millions of dollars when you're paying teachers sometimes $26,000 a year, and that's below the poverty line? You have teachers on welfare and food stamps because they're not respected enough to be paid. And so that situation, and if I could do something worldwide, I would change that. Talk is cheap. Practice what you preach, and put your money put your money where your mouth is. I mean, do that for teachers. And about the legacy I want to leave, I think that just understanding that we are truly a partnership in terms of the community, in terms of parents, that school to home connection, that this is, we are part of the village. What they say, it takes a village. Well, teachers are a vital part of that village. And I just want my pupil population to soar. I want them to, understand that they can manifest anything and they can be anything that they desire to be. And I think that's enough for me. That is enough for me because I've already been blessed beyond what I deserve. I mean, God made me a teacher. I mean, that's the best thing in the world. I mean, my goodness.
Wow, fantastic, fantastic. Just so inspiring, Dr. Dewhanne, and the passion that, you show when you talk about education and your experience with the student and what you do, to make them grow, to make them go to the next level. And I always talk about going to the next level of your greatness. This is what it's all about, helping people to go to the next level of the greatness, to challenge themselves every day and, nonstop. And really, and at the same time, be happy with what they're doing. Thank you so much for this powerful conversation. You've shared, you actually reminded us today that education is not only about curriculum. It's not only about curriculum. It's a culture. It's about, the culture. It's about the identity, not only the identity of the child, but the identity of the parents and the educator. And it's also about, the emotional and psychological safety, of to allow that potential, the potential of the children to really thrive, to allow the children to thrive and the potential to really be unleashed because Otherwise, they just get stuck. They just get stuck, and they don't. They're not able to really live, up to their potential. So thank you so much for that. So how do people connect with you if they want to continue this conversation, or even just know a little bit more about what you're doing and see how they can, support your work as well?
Well, you can contact me at my last name, Nyivih, at me.com. That's the email. And from there, I answer all emails, and then I connect you with my main website, but Nyivih at me.com. And I just want to say thank you for what you're doing. I've watched several of your shows, and you're amazing. You're brilliant. I was just getting into Dare. So I think you're amazing, and what you're doing with this platform is fantastic. You learn so much from the different people that you have on your show. So thank you for having me, and thank you for doing what you do.
Thank you very much. I always tell people that this is my university. This is where I'm doing my doctorate, basically, because I learned so much from the people that I bring, on this platform. And I'm very, happy just to be the funnel to help people to go to the next level of their greatness, and for them to understand that, they're not alone. People have gone through a lot challenges, and they've gone through, and they can do the same. So that's the important part of it. So thank you for your time again, and I want to thank the listeners. And whoever was gonna, watch this show later on, just reach out to us if there is any question, or if you want to connect with Dr. Dewhanne to know what she's doing and how she's impacting, children, parents, educators, in a community, and obviously internationally now, because we had her here, and it is a global platform. You can always reach out if you need, to talk to her or the help from her. Definitely. So thank you for being with us today. We will be back for another episode of the Greatness Engineering Show next week, and we will stay in the US, and it is going to be, again, a very inspiring conversation. So join us, tune in, and you can also tune in from my YouTube channel to check on the old episode, the previous episode. And like it was mentioned, it is a real university for all of us. We learn so much from the guests that we're having here on this platform. So thank you very much, and be blessed, and see you next time.